Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting, fun-filled, hair-raising episode of Radiorama, where, as the name suggests, I show you how to work on radios. And today we have a General Electric model T-140A in sage green. The other model came in rose beige. That sounds like a gross color. I'm glad that we have the sage green one instead. Anyway, it is a generic All-American 5 tube radio. Output is 50C5, a rectifier is 35W4, and the last three, as you would expect, 12BE6, 12BA6, 12AV6. So we have two single section tubes and then a third tube, 12AV6, that has three sections. I don't know if it works or not. One of our members donated it to us yesterday. He's clearing out all of his stuff, and so he donated it. So let's just go for broke. Let's turn it on. On this one, you got to pull out the volume control to turn it on, which is confusing to some people because most people expect you to just turn the knob to the right to turn it on. And I have no way of knowing if the tubes are lighting up because it's a sealed cabinet.
That pressure, some of that full cord.
Sitting in that mess, and now they don't. A subscription service.
It does work. We've got quite a bit of hum going on there, which tells me probably the electrolytics are shot. Or maybe the real electrolytics have been replaced and those are going bad. I don't know. Maybe it's been worked on. I get a suspicious feeling this is probably a PC board design, meaning the electrolytics are in a can that is stuck on the board and I'm going to have to desolder it with a solder sucker. So let's remove the back and see what kind of goodies we got going on in this incredibly sophisticated piece. Alright, well, it's been worked on. The electrolytics have been replaced with these guys. That said, I do not like how long those leads are. Now, the member who donated it is a very nice person, and he told me that some of these might be sets that he restored a long time ago. And you know, if I look back at some of the stuff I restored when I was younger, like, there's a lot of things that I did that I would not do now. And, you know, I think when people start restoring things, there's a tendency to have really long gangly leads like that. No problem. I'll just cinch those up. But the good news is that the hard work's already been done, which was removing that electrolytic can. This is probably the across-the-line cap. In the 50s, a lot of manufacturers figured, well, if we used a plastic sealed capacitor, surely that'll be better. There won't be any moisture. The problem is, like, if there's any nicks or scratches or cracks in these plastic shelled caps, moisture gets inside, they short out and they go off with a bang. I've seen so many of these caps that are blasted in half. Other than that, I don't really see much else going on cap-wise. It looks like the volume control is separately connected to the front here. I'm assuming when I pull it out there'll be a nut or something. It has not one but two speakers, and you'll notice on the front it makes a very big deal about it. It says dual speaker with a crown above it. And my theory is that the manufacturer probably figured that most Americans were pretty ignorant when it comes to technology, as they are these days as well. So you figured two speakers must mean stereo for some people, because about this time period, hi-fi started coming out. And so if you were a electrically illiterate person and you saw a boring 5-tube radio that said dual speaker, you might be convinced you're into thinking, well, that must mean that it's stereo. That's just my theory. Maybe I'm being mean, but it looks like to take the chassis out, we need to take this screw out and then pull that out, and then we'll desolder. I'm trying to think here. What should I do here? Looks like the speakers are just bolted in. Maybe I'll take them all out. I won't desolder anything. So let's get this puppy apart. Well, I got some bad news here. When I pulled the volume pot out, the plastic area that it's attached to just crumbled completely crumbled. So I'm going to have to figure out some other plan. I'm thinking maybe I can fabricate something. This is really aggravating. I've never had plastic crumble like that before. Alright. So we're going to do some good old-fashioned redneck engineering. What I did is I cleaned off most of the broken off area. What I did is I measured the approximate height of the broken off pieces and kind of stacked a bunch of washers here, so that will get at the approximate height of the disintegrated bits. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to roughen this up, and I'm kind of basically put some JB Weld around that. And once I'm done with that, I'm going to embed this ring in it. And when it comes to reassembly, I think I'm going to epoxy or glue this thing back in there. Actually, what I might do, I'm thinking out loud now, is I could JB Weld a washer in there, just because basically JB Weld acts like a plastic. So if I could reform, okay, let me think about it. All right, well there we go. Am I super proud of that? No, not really. It's not like I'm going to win any awards, but it's going to allow me to reattach the volume pot and save the radio. Otherwise, this would have been garbage. So now let's move on to the chassis. And again, what I want to, wow, well, look at this. This cap is physically dented in. I think I'm going to replace that guy. 47 microfarads. What's this guy here? 33 microfarads. Maybe I'll just replace both those guys. We need to replace the across the line cap. And I'm assuming this other cap is probably the AC cap. Probably, because that's going to the common negative right here. So we'll replace that with a safety cap as well to bring the set's current potential on the chassis down, even though there's really not an easy way to get to the chassis on this guy at all. Alright, welcome back to day 2, working on the General Electric. My epoxy job's set up just fine. That's not going to go anywhere, so I think I saved the radio. So I'm just going to replace both of these dangly guys. I don't like the way that looks at all. Looks like the common negatives here. Then we'll replace these two caps. Not much else to replace. The rest of the caps are inside that wafer. Things started getting real cheap in the 50s, as you can see. Alright, so I got the electrolytics replaced. You see they're snugged up next to the chassis. And we got our across the line cap installed in the other cap. And I've cleaned the pot with a little contact cleaner, and we're just going to plug it in, see if it works. Usually I don't just plug things in if it's got a power transformer. When it's these guys, you know, there's jack shit to go wrong. So looks like we have filament coming up here, at least on those two guys. Okay, I hear something.
A lot of, truth that heating up, and that means the Wendy Wooden Watch has begun. Go to ESPN.com and search for Wooden Watch for the list of the Wooden Award nominees to watch as this season rolls on. Bring the big man back.
Well, me touching that tuning shaft is interfering with its tuning, but it doesn't seem like it's picking up very good. It's just me. Also, the speakers sound like crap, so I'm going to put them on a towel so they don't vibrate around. Ooh, we've got a rip in this guy too. I need to fix that.
Oh, here we go. In a bracket together. There is only one individual.
It's actually not that bad, but I am going to see about tweaking the IF cans a little bit.
So you are welcome.
And I'm of course going to use the tool you're not supposed to use. It's a metal screwdriver. Let's see.
Showing you in the Zoom, you are not alone. James Steele also in his bracket had UConn.
Is he in the official ESPN radio bracket?
He is not in the official
Okay.
ESPN radio bracket. So it is.
You're correct.
It is because our ESPN radio bracket, I think, is just for the on-air talent.
I didn't say that, James. She said that. I advocated for you and everybody else. She didn't care. She said keep that trash in its own lane.
That wasn't my decision.
गाने के साथ मैं जा रही हूँ तो बाय बाय टेक केयर लव यू ध्यान रखिए प्रिकॉशंस लीजिए क्योंकि कोविड के केसेस बहुत बढ़ रहे हैं अपना ध्यान रखिए और ढक कर रहिए
a lot of movement on these cans. There's some dirt in these. There's some dirt in those fins as well. That's probably not helping anything. It's not a great radio. That's probably about the best I'm going to get out of it. But you know, it's not going to be just a radio. We're going to add an audio input, which I know a lot of you guys are like, no, we can't do that. That ruins the radio. But I'm going to do it because this is kind of a not very valuable radio. And by adding an ability for somebody to listen to their music through it, it suddenly becomes a little bit more valuable. All right, next thing we need to do is run the audio input feature I was talking about, which is essentially injecting audio into the set through the top of the volume control. Obviously, this is the volume control. And there are 3 legs on it. There's a bottom, which is the ground. And then the other side is essentially the incoming radio signal. So this is like the incoming audio signal. And so what we want to do is have the ability to cut the radio signal off temporarily so that instead we're just getting pure audio going through the top of the volume control. I'm guessing this is probably the top of the pot because this is a black wire, and black usually indicates going to some sort of ground. So the green one, when I traced it through here, it's also connecting to this IF transformer right here. It's a dead giveaway. So we will put a switch between here, these two connections here. I'll probably shorten this wire here. Because everything's kind of like loosey-goosey, I'm going to just wire things up with some skinny wire, and then we're going to go through this isolation transformer. And there's something interesting that we found out. I mean, probably the other guys knew it, and I'm just like electronically stupid. But we found that if we were to change the ratio of the windings on these guys, we can actually boost audio a little bit. So what we were getting were 120 volt in, rather 110 volts in, and then like 12 volts for the secondary winding, essentially. And we found that from going from 12 to 6 volts for the secondary boosts the audio a little bit. And trust me, this little thing needs all the little boosting it can get, because you know, they're kind of chintzy little speakers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go get some wire, and we're going to run the switch wire and also the audio input wire. And then what I really want to do first is make sure that this is actually the wire that disconnects the radio signal, because sometimes it doesn't fully connect. You don't have to disconnect more than one thing. So I'm hoping this one's straightforward. Okay, so now that I've got that wire disconnected, we shouldn't hopefully hear any radio. Now, granted, I've got my sound system going on as well. That's not the radio. That is on and all up all the way. Just let me test something here. Uh-oh. Why do I have no sound? Oh wait, I didn't have the volume turned up. So what we'll do is tune around. We're not picking anything up, so let me do this. Yep. So that's our switch path right there. So now that we know that's established, we know that's the top of the pot, and that's where we can start configuring our circuitry for the audio input feature. Okay, so all the wiring is run for the switches as well as the input. That's as far as I'm going to get as far as the electronics before reinstallation. I do want to clean up the cabinet. It's unfortunate that inside it has this pegboard stuff that's been like essentially spot welded into place. Ordinarily I could just take this over to the sink and scrub all these little details. I think what I'm going to do instead is get a toothbrush and some warm water and a little, I guess, detergent, and just get in here, because I can't soak that board. That'll warp and then the speakers won't reattach properly. Alright, so I did clean all the detail stuff out of here, and I got the knob off. And now what I'm going to do is go over the rest of the case with plastic polish, Novus number 2 plastic polish, and my handy dandy buffing machine. Sure saves my hands. Anyway, I found a beer that hasn't been sold here in years, Red Hook. I used to get that stuff when I lived in Boston, and one of my friends the other day was telling me like, oh, he misses Red Hook, they wish they had it out here, and I was at the grocery store and there they had it. So there you go. If you're watching it, you can get it at Safeway. Anyway, so I'm going to go over the top of this and the sides. I'm not going to do the front, obviously, because that would be a mess. And then I'm also going to polish up the clear plastic tuning knob here, because it's also kind of grungy and scratched up. Alright, so certainly looks a lot better. I mean, there's a huge scratch there, but I can't do anything about that. That's too deep for me to do anything with. That makes all the difference in the world, you know, just like the little details, like even here. This is now like perfectly clear. It's going to look a lot better. It's time to start doing some final reassembly, and this thing will be on the road being done. Okay, so I've basically wired everything up. We have our isolation transformer, and then what we're doing is we're running the right and left channels together through a pair of 33 ohm resistors, so that blends the channels together so we get true mono. And then we have a 270K resistor attached to a 0.02 rated cap, and that will preserve the set's automatic gain control when the radio is put back into functionality. We don't want the this transformer to influence the AGC. And so right now, like, the radio is disconnected, and I have audio connected through this little Bluetooth thing here. Sounds pretty good. So what I'm going to do is glue this into this cabinet and have a knot tied here so that when it comes through this hole, it won't get like yanked out. So it's just about done. We're getting there. Again, this is such a basic radio compared to that thing. It's almost refreshing. So little to go wrong here. Alright, well, I got it all back together again.
I found my way, for love came just...
I mean, does it sound amazing? Like, no. Does it sound good for what it is? Probably. Two like little pie pan speakers. Anyway, I've got the Bluetooth running through it, and it seems like it's pretty happy about that. And we can turn it off. Anyway, I'm really glad that I was able to save this guy. I remember when that plastic crumbled, I thought, this guy's toast. Too bad. It's going to go to the garbage bin. But it's not. Actually, it seems like it's doing pretty well. So, thanks so much for watching this episode of Radiorama. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them down in the comment section below, and I'll try to get to them, even though I'm doing a very bad job of doing that lately. So, apologies on my part. But again, I really appreciate you guys watching. And until the next time a radio comes across my workbench, I'll see you guys next time. Adios.